Hello, today this is Meredith Lego, and I am doing a series of YouTube videos on various teachings that I've channeled from an Ascended Master named Hilarion. And basically, Ascended Masters are individuals who basically have completed the reincarnational cycle. Don't have to go through that, but because they're humans, they very much understand what it means to be in a human experience and are teaching beyond the veil. And in the last few sessions, I have focused more on topics around quantum, I guess you could say quantum science, but really it's how we as individuals basically are able to manifest our reality based upon our thoughts and actions, and how that sort of interacts with the quantum field. So I encourage you to look back the last few sessions if you have interest in that. In this particular session, I'm going to touch upon a series of Q&A questions that I did with Hilarion that more focuses on the concept of something he brought up about being in a hologram and exactly how that works. This was channeled back in kind of mid-2020, but at the time I asked, and I'll kind of read what I basically asked him in his responses, but I basically asked, some scientists suggest that we may exist in a simulation and that our real self is lying on an impact bed or a med bed. Now, I've heard both terms actually used, actually this year. It's starting to come up more and more that I'm hearing this information come out. Sometimes, again, it's been suggested that this could be the case. That we could be in some sort of situation of living in a different reality, in some sort of a bed, actually entering into this reality. So if you've seen the movie Avatar, that would kind of be an example of what that would be like, only it would be more of a simulation type situation. And so I asked basically that question. Then I went on to ask, is the impact bed real? Are Ascended Masters still on an impact bed? But that's basically the question that I phrased up. And the answer I got was, the impact bed is a concept of sleep to enter into the matrix learning simulation. There are some situations that most do not know. This is one. The impact bed is real insofar as it's a place in which the consciousness chooses to enter a simulation for learning. All dimensions perceived are part of the simulation. So in other words, what that would imply is that any singular dimension that we experience, whether it be in the astral plane when we're in dream time or any other dimensions, if you have the ability or the perceptions to experience multidimensionality, what he's suggesting here is that all dimensions are part of this simulation. He goes on to say, so in essence, when you die and transition into another dimension, you are still in the simulation. You awaken from the simulation when your higher self feels you have mastered the learning plan. Each simulation is unique for each being, while some are a shared reality. Then I went on to ask, basically about a dream that I had earlier that week, in which I actually saw a couple of guides or operators, I guess you could say, show me how they basically create player characters for us and sort of enter those player characters into a simulated reality for us to interact with. And so I asked about that as well. So I said, Hilarion, 2 nights ago I was shown in my dream a technology used by our guides to create player characters who interact with us. It reminded me of player characters in the video games that kids play. Tell me more about this dream and the meaning. And I asked that because that very much, I think, was queued up from the conversation that I had around the concept of being in a simulation. His answer was, the time has come for man to understand certain aspects of how their external environment works. This is one. Based on certain contractual and learning desires a soul has, a holographic reality is constructed within a matrix. Consciousness manipulates the creation or construction of the patterns to produce form or the perception of form. And pausing there, if you go back to the first few videos, basically what this explains is that in this sort of construct that we exist in, anytime that we have a thought, that thought, especially if it's expounded with an emotion, will basically create a certain sound frequency. And sound frequency then has the ability to essentially pattern quantum material. So it starts with electrons within the atoms, has the ability to pattern them into the formation of different geometric patterns. And you can see this show up quite well if you do any research on the study of cymatics, where sound vibrations literally can start to form patterns either in water or on a Chladni plate. So he's basically saying that's what happened. And based upon our vibrational rate can also indicate the speed in which the electrons are basically rotating and spinning around the atom. And in some cases, those electrons can sort of pop in and out of reality and basically put us into different timelines based upon, again, our vibrational pattern. So what he's saying, again, is that consciousness manipulates the creation or the construction of patterns to produce form and the perception of form. So form would be physical reality like this pen. As a being interacts with his or her environment, that being will call into creation certain forms or situations as well, simply through thought and intention magnified by emotional energy. These thoughts are read or understood by the guides of the being who can manipulate the construct of the hologram to produce an outcome. So it seems from the previous sessions that not only can we essentially bring in certain forms and experiences that we will then learn through and learn to grow and evolve as basically a soul, but in addition to that, our guides are reading this as well, and they can use that to essentially, I'm guessing, basically, help our learning process as well. So basically what he goes on to say is that what you saw in your lesson was how a whole team of beings worked behind the scenes, so to speak, to manage your every environment. They set up opportunities for learning and growth and watch your reactions. Remember, you are in a school, a very safe school. And then he goes on to ask, knowing now what you know, how does that change your outlook on life and your decisions? Does it not melt away any fears that you hold back? It's not real. So what this basically is implying is that we live in a very safe environment. And with this understanding, the question is, why would you still hold on to fears? Basically, this then affords us the opportunities to sort of ask the question, well, what if this is a simulation? What would we do differently? How would we live our lives differently? Would we take the risks that, currently are holding us up, or that we're too afraid to move forward with in life? So I thought this was, pretty interesting. I hope that you gain something out of it. If the content resonates with you, I encourage you to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much. Bye.